Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching,
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Yo, what up, world? Yo, it is Monday night, and we are here on a special Monday night edition of the POGs. For those of you guys that was looking for us yesterday, we do apologize, but due to time constraints in the previous engagement, I was unfortunately unable to make it. We were out shooting a little bit late, and I wasn't able to get back to home station until very late. So I do apologize, but we are here Monday. One day late, but still, nonetheless, we made it. Chappie, I'm here with the world's greatest chaplain, Mr. Lance O'Neill, back for another episode. What's up, man? How was your weekend?
No mention, huh?
What? Your beard?
It's gone.
What'd you do?
I shaved it.
Why?
I shaved it like last night.
Why?
Well, I have a meeting with the brigade commander on Wednesday, so I just kind of. No, it'll be good. It's a what are your right and left limits for the next year until you retire conversation. so it's good. And then I still have a little fuzz, and I'll get rid of it. But my daughter, when I walked out, first thing my wife said was, "Oh, you've lost 10 years, huh?"
Oh wow! Oh,
I was like, "If you say so." But and then my 11-year-old, she was like, "Oh, you shaved? Oh, you look so much better." I'm like, "You guys both suck. You only want me because of how I look." What's next? If I ask, do these pants make me look fat? Are you going to actually say yes?
Look at you. They won't let you be great with the retirement beard.
Right. I got to admit, though, it was getting a little long. I don't know how the big puffy beard guys do it.
It's not for everybody. I tried to grow. Yeah, I tried like 6 months straight, man. I just could not get used to it. So I'm at a comfortable length now. Anything longer than this, it gets all itchy and irritating, and I can't deal with it. So.
Yeah, mine ended up probably. I mean, there were definitely some that were a good 3/4 of an inch. That's not bad for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about these guys that get the really long ones. I could probably pull that off in a month, or no, I'm sorry, in a year. But no, I had to do it, and so that's what's new. What's not new is the Dodgers getting spanked by the Padres again.
That was, man, what happened? Well, I don't have a dog in the fight anymore, so I can't say much. But I don't know, man. I was hoping you guys would take care of that fairly quickly.
It's 1-1. It's not over yet. We'll see how it goes in San Diego. Got to get it back to Dodger Stadium, or win both in Petco. But so it just, I mean, crazy. You look at the weekend with college football, just holy cow, college football is phenomenal right now. Everybody just beating up on everybody, which I love.
Shout out to Vandy, man. Hey, those Commodores.
Yeah.
Dog Nation is very appreciative. We thank you.
And you know what? Again, with the rankings crack me up, right? Okay, so Alabama loses to Vanderbilt. Fine. 2 weeks ago, Alabama beat Georgia, and now Georgia is ranked ahead of Alabama.
Yeah.
If only there was a way to determine which of those two teams was better.
It doesn't make sense, right?
Maybe on the well, I mean, there's always the look. This I've been saying this for years. The preseason polls are ridiculous. If you started a poll after week 4, and shout out to AJ Jackson, Florida State never would have sniffed the top 25. They were number 10 coming in. They're the poster child for not having preseason polls. But where's Michigan? USC's out. Michigan's at like a 25. USC is out of the polling. They were at like 11 last week.
Yeah.
So what happens is you have this idea of I saw one of these guys that does a polling. It might have been Jeff Passan or one of these guys. He's like, here is my non-logo ranking. And what he meant was, I'm going to look at the teams, and I don't care. I don't care that it has the A on the number for Alabama, the G for Georgia. He had BYU like at 6th or 7th. And I'm like, bravo, man. Just because he's going clearly out of performance, not the other stuff. Now, do I think BYU, my team, is the number 6 or 7 best team in the country? Nah, no. But the SMU win looked great. You can only beat who's in front of you. They may lose this week, this weekend to Arizona by 20. I don't know. But it's the problem with the perceptions and the media's fascination with running with the narrative. And to segue, you've got one of, if not the most unpopular by polling, most unpopular vice presidents in history, who, as soon as the current president steps down from running, not out of the seat, but just from running, she suddenly becomes super popular and lovable. That's why I'm really going to be curious how I don't agree with the polling. I think I've said this for years. Look, polls are a lie. The only poll that matters when it comes to election is who you vote for. And you've got, George Soros has been throwing money for years and years and years. And on the other side, now Elon Musk came out and he said, all right, I'm going to pay $47 for every person you refer that signs a Second Amendment petition. I don't know what the petition is. I signed that sucker and sent it to everybody and posted on Facebook that if you
Second Amendment petition?
Sign, if you'll pay me $47 for people to go in and just put, here's my address, I signed the Second Amendment. Let's say 1,000 people signed that. 1,000 people at $47, I'm going to have to claim income tax on that 47,000. I will happily do it. But we'll see if anything happens.
That sounds fishy as hell.
Oh, you think so? But no, Musk literally put this on his own X account, dude.
I'm sure he did.
Okay, so we'll see. But I like the idea of this is the type of thing that George Soros and the Democrats. We were talking about this last week just on Facebook. We had the longshoremen go on strike, and immediately everybody freaked out, right? The East Coast is going to be just killed, and prices are going to skyrocket, and everybody's freaking out. And then the next day, and the guy who's the longshoreman president of that union, we won't get into his personal finances, but he's in the 1% of this country. He turns around and says, no, you know what? No, we're going to wait. We're going to continue negotiating. Tell me the cabal didn't call the longshoreman union and say, yeah, you will end this. And then President Biden sent out, we've headed this off. So you're telling me the president of the longshoremen announces a strike. They all go on strike. They have their picket signs. They're out there for a day. And they suddenly turn around and come off strike without winning any concessions and just go back to work.
I don't need a tinfoil hat at this point. Like it's almost surreal at this point to it's almost as if they play in your face. You know what I mean? It's almost like they dare you to it's like, what are you gonna do at this point? Like it's like, so what?
Who's gonna say the emperor is naked?
That's it. Yeah, it's almost like, like, so what? Yeah, like, yeah, we did it. And what? Like,
what you gonna do?
Yeah.
Do you remember? That makes me think of. Do you remember when Romney was running in 2012, and Harry Reid came out and said Mitt Romney hasn't paid his income taxes in years. He owes so much money, it's unbelievable. And Romney is like, what are you talking about? I turned my documentation in. It's all there. What? And after the election, they went to Harry Reid and they said, hey, why did you make that accusation? It was completely baseless. And Reid went, we won, didn't we?
Yeah.
Now, Harry Reid is a member of my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mitt Romney is a member of my church. Harry Reid is a piece of garbage. And when he died already, and I did not feel bad one iota, because the guy, to me, did more damage to imagine this country. Imagine, okay, let's just go through here a little bit of the religious. Hey, let's all put on our angel hats for a second, our halos for a second. And Harry Reid dies, and he goes up to the pearly gates. And I love Steve Martin. Steve Martin's like, he has a joke about this. Let's say you die, and it turns out it's like what you've always heard in the tales, clouds and harps and wings. Wouldn't you feel like an idiot? Like there's just clouds, and well, I guess I'll go in and what? Oh, you mean I got judged? Well, I mean, I wasn't so bad. I mean, look, how many times did I take the Lord's name in vain? Ooh, 1,000,006. Jesus Christ. It's one of the best. I love Steve Martin. But imagine Harry Reid standing before God and God going, you know what? I blessed that country. I made that I inspired the Declaration of Independence. I inspired the Constitution. I made this the greatest country in the history of the world. And you lied, and look at where they are. This is only 12 years ago. Think of what has changed since 2012 and where we are at as a people and where the government is at as a government. And Harry Reid going, sorry. Huh?
It's like, yeah. Huh?
I mean, whoops. So
like, yeah, we screwed the pooch on that one. I mean, I don't know, man. I have such a pessimistic outlook on the way things are shifting between the way the strike was handled and the things in North Carolina. I'm just like,
my wife just said that to me. She said, what do you think about, and I'm going to ask you first, what do you think about how the media is dealing with what's going on in North Carolina?
Business as usual.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how big a deal has the media made the flooding and the devastation in North Carolina?
It's not a big deal because they don't want you to know, right?
Okay, so the media has not made it a big deal. The media has made it like a 2, maybe a 3.
Yeah, it's not.
What's the devastation in North Carolina actually?
Oh, I'm sure. Well, it depends.
Well, it of course.
One man's devastation is another man's business opportunity, right?
Well, sure. But when we're talking about natural disasters, right? We got hit here. We're on the dirty side of the storm. Yeah. We luckily didn't lose any trees. We lost power for about 6 days. But you have places in North Carolina that got just absolutely flooded out, like swimming to work. And you're not seeing videos of it on the weekly news, and not even hey, it was one news cycle, and so now we're not really worried about it. It was almost crickets.
Yeah.
And then you have Elon Musk getting a report from one of his guys on the ground that out there helping and trying to distribute Starlink and get these people up and going again. And now it's anecdotal, of course, but this guy is saying, not only are we being told we can't go in and help these people by local FEMA officials, but we are having the stuff we brought confiscated by FEMA. So now you have the New York Times then turns around and say, oh, the efforts by the federal government, they're being hampered by misinformation. I got to admit, I don't trust the New York Times as far as I can read it. I read everything in the New York Times with just what was the Nicolas Cage where he was going to he was going to steal the Constitution? National Treasure?
National Treasure.
Yeah, I read everything with my with my New York Times glasses on. That you turn them on, and they have the different colors, and you can see what they're actually saying and what they're actually not saying.
You remember You remember when we first started this podcast, right? And one of the things we kind of talked about, and we talked about racism and equality and how things in America is so weird now, right? And I remember we talked about it and I made a point and I said the reason why America is in such a flummox, right? And I said for the first time,
flummox, good word.
yeah, for the first time in America's history, things are better, but better is not always good because Americans, black and white, are all being treated equally. And for the first time, white Americans are being treated like black citizens, and they don't like it.
I remember that. I
Yeah.
remember that debate or
And
that conversation we had.
so what's happening in North Carolina, we've experienced this before. There was this thing in New Orleans, right? Where these dudes had a hurricane, right? And it's weird thing, right? So these government contracts came through, right? A couple of weeks before hurricane. And this hurricane came through and devastated communities. I mean, completely flooded these guys out. Absolutely tragic. And, destroyed all these beautiful historic communities. And next thing you know, FEMA came in under the guise of helping everybody and everything was going to be great. And the news, it was like a flash in the pan and everybody was like, oh, it's great. And the next thing you know, you didn't hear about it anymore. And then on social media, you saw all these reports of people complaining and saying, hey, we're not getting any help and the insurance companies aren't covering it. And they're saying, oh, well, you didn't have the right insurance coverage or it wasn't you didn't have the right insurance coverage. So we're not going to cover it. So guess what? You got to move out. And unfortunately, don't worry though, the government's going to take care of you. And you never heard from them people again. And guess what? They never got their property back.
No,
I wonder.
I will give a little bit of insight on that one. Now, just a small snippet, not writ large, a small snippet. You remember that the federal government decided that they were going to treat all of those people in New Orleans like illegal immigrants and fly them to different places on the U.S. dime.
Yeah.
The difference was these are U.S. citizens, and they flew them places that they weren't really telling them where they were going, right? It's like, well, here's your bus ticket, get on the bus. Where it's going, we're not going to say. And I remember, because I'm from Utah, that there were lots of flights that went to Salt Lake and people were given
from Katrina. You got a bunch of New Orleans. Yeah. You got a bunch of New Orleans pop up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, I was in Houston at the time. I actually went to New Orleans and helped with the cleanup.
Yeah.
Right after it happened, we went and did a lot of the help with my group specifically, the LDS church. It's funny, there were only two groups there, the LDS church and the Mormons. Yeah. So
this is where Reagan's words are going to come back to hunt the guys in Appalachia. Right.
Well, and so what happened was a lot of these people got sent to Utah, and a lot of those people went, this is really nice. Mm-hmm. And the federal government was coming in saying, hey, we can move you back if you want. And a lot of them said, no, I'm good here. Now, the question becomes what you just said is how many of them lost their land? And a lot, if not the vast majority. We've seen this now repeat. Look what happened at Maui.
Yeah, same thing in Hawaii.
How much money did Maui get? And you have The Rock and Oprah, two of the richest people that I know. I mean, they're certainly in the top of the 1%. They're not 1%ers. They're near the top. Oprah certainly is. We
can say that they're very comfortable.
Yeah. And they're coming in and getting on social media saying, hey, if you can support Katrina victims, then you really should donate. Are you kidding? Oprah, you are worth billions with a B, billions of dollars. You could write a check that would rebuild that entire town. And would it dent your fortune? Sure. Would you still be a billionaire with a B? Absolutely. Many times over? Absolutely. And if you just have normal reinvestment, how long would it take before, let's say she wrote a check for $1 billion to rebuild. I don't know exactly what she's worth, but my guess is within 5 to 10 years, without doing anything special, her investments would more than make up $1 billion.
So
Okay.
the lands
So
the lands that those guys were sitting on, right? The lithium and the
in
quartz
Maui?
mine. No, in Carolina.
Oh, in Carolina. Oh, they're sitting on some deposits.
The lithium and quartz mines, right?
Tin hat time.
You think they're getting it back?
Here's my question. Well, here's my question to Tin Hat on that. There's a couple parts of that. The video I saw, and it was just a, hey, I'm just asking the questions video, and I get that. But it was implying that the federal government made the floods worse. And you remember Kanye, it's famous when Kanye said, and Mike Myers, when Kanye said, Bush don't like black people. And Mike Myers is just like,
yeah.
What am I supposed to say here? Famous, love it. I mean, it's such just a funny picture.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But it was because there was this accusation that they blew up the retainers and the dams on the walls, which was absolute rubbish. But that's the same type of people who say
no, the levees malfunction. They malfunction.
Yeah. And they didn't. They got overwhelmed, which fine. So
unfortunate series of events.
Yes. And so could you say that the federal government was just sitting back and waiting and hoping for something like this hurricane to come along or some form of devastation? Is it beneficial? Is it not even the federal government? Is it beneficial to the cabal to have lithium and high-end quartz available in the United States that don't really have to be purchased now? And not even purchased. You don't have to be the bad guy.
I'm not really I'm not really a conspiracy guy, but just the timing of it all. You got,
Yeah. Well, how would you
got corporate
how, though?
Well, you got corporate takeover, right? You got the corporate guys, they've been fighting for months trying to get the land. You got the city and you got the citizens and the municipality saying over my dead body. Now you got domain. Now you got this great opportunity where, there's a nice hurricane coming through. It'd be a shame if it comes through and just devastates everything.
But how would you make that hurricane? No, I don't.
How would you make the hurricane worse? I don't know. I don't know.
That's where I start getting. I've got a buddy. Oh, you remember Ben Shovel?
Yeah.
We could get Ben's on and ask him what he thinks about the government controlling the weather, and he would probably go the entire podcast and give 2 hours of how the U.S. government controls the weather. But
I mean, there have been scientists reporting since, I think, as early as 2011, they came public about being able to manipulate. Yeah. They came public about being able to manipulate. Now, I don't know if it just happened to be a target of opportunity and they just took advantage. I don't know. It may just
I don't either. I don't either. That said, I think Occam's razor applies, which is target of opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, even if it's a target of opportunity, it doesn't make it right. And if what we both think is going to happen happens, which is the federal government and the cabal come in and
are going to help them
relocate.
Yes.
Help them. Eminent domain without eminent domain.
Exactly.
It will not be reported in a way that is down the middle, factual. It will be, if it's reported, will be reported subjectively. And it will be reported in a way that makes good guys and bad guys, or actually, just good guys. It'll say, hey, we came in, we gave them money, we helped them out. They're happy where they are now. We took all these people to a farm where they can run around in the sunshine and they have all they can eat, and and you'll get that. And anybody that comes up and goes, hey, wait a minute. My 80-year-old grandma, whose house wasn't touched, got moved, and she didn't want to move. These guys just kind of showed up and moved her, and I'm in a different state, so I couldn't do anything about it. And those claims, he's just this guy's a conspiracy theorist. He just
he's one of them crazy mountain people, you know.
Oh, look, and the federal government just arrested him on child porn charges.
Yeah. I mean, you hate to see it, and you know, it's just one of them things. But there at this point, there is too much just factual, empirical evidence that these people are not going to get that land back. Unfortunately, they are going to be helped. They're going to be helped out of their rights. They are going to be helped out of their land.
Yep.
They're going to be
from the government, and I am here to help you.
That is it. And know, and the sad part about it is, and that's how far away from civility we've become as a society. No matter who wins in November, it's not a good look for whichever administration gets it. So it's going to be swept under the rug either way.
I'll say this. I think there's an important. I think it does matter, though.
Let me finish it, though, because ultimately, the U.S. economy is going to thrive for that land. So no matter which administration gets the nod, they're going to do what's best for the economy. And what's best for the economy is mining the lithium and the quartz deposits, right? So the residents aren't going to get it. So it just is what it is. It's going to be a business move.
So here's the thing about that. That has been going on historically in memorial, right?
It absolutely is.
You've always had this is not new. This happened in Africa, with West Africa, with the gold mines there. It's happened in the Middle East with the oil there. It's happened in Asia with the spices 5,000 years ago. This is not new.
Yes.
The federal government going in and taking over this land, to me, if that's what happens, I think it's highly likely. It's just eminent domain by another name. It's weather domain, web opportunity domain. Will these people be paid some? Sure. But even if they weren't paid, here's the thing. It's going to be like Daniel Plainview on There Will Be Blood. You live here. You live on top of the quartz, and you live on top of the lithium. Well, we came in and we drilled this way. I drank your milkshake.
Yeah.
I drink it up. So do I really think that? Now, I do not know where these lithium or quartz deposits are. I don't know if they're up on a mountain. I don't know if they really are back behind old man Bucket's house, or if he's living on the land. But yeah, I mean, here's the other side, KJ. Let me ask you this. If these things were on federal land, let's assume they are. If they're on federal land, but the only way to get to them is to displace X number of people, North Carolinians, West Virginians, whoever they are, Appalachian, rich, poor, indifferent. Is it wrong for the federal government to go in and say, we need you to move. We are going to support your move with muscle if needs be. We're going to buy your land at a fair market price, whatever that fair market is. And you weren't getting, now here's the thing. They weren't going to get the mineral rights anyway. I'm arguing this from the point of they were not going to get the mineral rights. At that point, do the needs of the many, like you said, the economy, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few? Historically, we've seen this. We know the answer for the federal government. We've seen it. Whatever whatever ethnic group you want to go in. We've seen it. White, black, Indian, Asian, whoever's on that land. The dude who owns, the dude who owns Sutter's Mill basically walked away from it with nothing.
Yeah.
He discovered it.
I believe the term at the turn of the century was manifest destiny, if I remember correctly. That was the term they used in the early 20th century.
No, manifest destiny was the belief that the United States was due to go from the Atlantic to the Pacific and all the land in between. So
and everything in between, though, right?
And everything in between, yeah. So originally with Sutter's Mill, what happened is, now remember, I love that I'm going to be teaching history because this is the type of stuff that I just love. So the dude who owned Sutter's Mill, and he found this, basically he found these people that were, hey, I don't really know much about mining. I've found this gold. I think I have something here. And he hired these guys. And these guys came in and said, yeah, sure, we'll help you out. And what they helped themselves to was everything they found. And they walked away with it. Then when word got out, everybody starts flocking in. And then the federal government came in and said, no, we can't have everybody just flocking in like this. It's ours. And the guy walked away with basically nothing. So I don't know right or wrong. I think the problem is what's fair for the government to do. If you say, and don't get me wrong, just because it's fair doesn't mean it's right. Because, and I'll give you an example of a really racist example. Just because the freeway we think should go through here, is that right? Because the guy who mapped out all of the stuff for New York and Long Island, he went out there and he decided where the Long Island Expressway was going to go, basically based on the rich guys that were on the one side. And they said, hey, no, this is our land. Here's some grease money. Go take it from the farmers who are in the middle. And he went, okay, that's fine. And so he displaced all these poor farmers, right, off of Long Island for the expressway. He did a lot of really sketchy things too, like building parks for the southern, but nothing up in Harlem and no green spaces in Harlem.
Or displacing an entire black community to put a park in the middle of the city.
Oh yeah, that type, right? That's
it's just like
did, yeah. So, and you have anybody who's of Native American content going, hey, us,
it'd be like, hey, let's not forget about that whole thing.
Oh yeah,
we may know a thing or two about it.
It would have had to have been 25 years ago. I remember reading an article about how much money the native tribes were owed from land and ore licenses that was supposed to be paid by the federal government. I actually wrote a letter to the Bureau of Land Management. I'll being a leftist.
Oh wow!
By the way, I love being accused of being a Democrat on this show.
Oh my God, you
couldn't be further from the truth.
I am such a liberal. I am just.
Yes, I know. But this is crazy. Like this money, and they were about no. It's being paid. Blah, blah. They hired an accounting firm to go back and investigate how much money was owed to the Native American tribes. They gave this accounting firm $600 million. Now, this would have been somewhere around probably 2000. I think I was in Connecticut. So 2000, right around 2000. So about 25 years ago, they gave this firm $600 million. You know how far back the firm did investigating to find what the monies that were missing?
How?
It got back to like 1973 and ran out of money.
Wow.
Because there was that much information of how much was owed. They were going back going, I mean, it's in the trillions of dollars.
Be like, you really don't want to know. Like, you really don't want to know how much you owe.
Yeah. You think whoever put that money out, you think Congress is like, we owe them how much now?
Yeah, you'd be like, just call it good.
But it wasn't even Congress. That's the funny thing. It was actually the mining industry and the oil industry and all that, Rio Tinto and all those guys. Wow. So but that the minute that number went out, Rio Tinto, one of the largest mining operations in the world, and home to Real Salt Lake, Rio Tinto Stadium in Salt Lake. So, you think they might have greased some palms in Congress? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you think they might have given some contributions in Congress to stop that?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they killed that report easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we don't need that. We don't need that kind of negativity getting out. Well, let's just not put that. Yeah. But I mean, that is, and I wouldn't, at this point, I wouldn't even call it an unfortunate, right? That's just the fabric of history, right? Like you evolve, you conquer, you move on, right? That's just how it works.
And that's the thing that, like, I think today's generation, and what I mean by today's, all of us alive right now, I don't mean like today's generation, like Gen X. I mean all of us today. That's where people fail to recognize and say, look, the victor writes the history. Yeah, it is. But this isn't a new thing for people to come out and say, well, there's not enough Native American history taught in our schools. There's not enough African American taught in our schools. There's not enough Inuit taught in our schools. We don't talk about the Chinese that were here. Why? Well, because this nation was conquered by white guys from Europe.
Because they lost. Yeah, because they lost.
And that's been something that's been true forever. This isn't an American thing. This is a human thing.
That's how it works.
So if one African tribe went in and dominated another African tribe, you know what they did? They took over.
And you assimilate. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they said, okay, well, we can wipe you out. Or if we don't feel like wiping you out and we could wipe you out, but how about this? How about you pay 50% of your crops to us and then we'll let you live and not kill you? And the other tribes going, well, crap, 50%, that sucks, but better being dead. Sure. Okay. And Alexander the Great did it. Genghis Khan would go in and he would wipe out cities, and then he'd move along to the next city, and the word would already be there. So the next city would go, please don't destroy us. What do you want? And Genghis Khan, I want this and this and this for my taxes. And they'd go, absolutely, here you go. So Genghis Khan, and he wouldn't go in and like win the battle against that city. He would raze it to the ground. He would kill every man, woman, child, livestock, everything. And so what did he just do by winning that one city? He just made where he didn't have to invade 5, 10, 15 of the next cities. And it just went on like that because his eyes were just unbelievable.
That's the nature of, and I think I don't even want to call it evolution because we stopped evolving a long time ago. I think we kind of went backwards as a society because
we've gotten stupider.
Yeah, it's like, hey man, we haven't, like, humans weren't meant to be inclusive, right? We weren't meant to be. We were meant to, hey, all right, one man, one team, best man, whoever gets it, you're on top. And when you're not on top no more, slide to the side, let the next man lead for the next one. And that's how it works, from Homo sapiens to Neanderthals. I can't remember which one was first, but then just the
Neanderthal were first. Yeah. Well, so that's where the argument comes from, though. When did civilization begin? Did civilization, Oliver, get off the bed. You are not supposed to get up there, crazy. When did civilization begin? Did it begin when we evolved societally from our small family unit and tribal that basically made a social contract to share food and share defense and share those things, to where it became city state? And these cities are now in the defense of the population, local population, and the king of that city state. When the city state like started, and they came out and Hammurabi came out and said, okay, here's the laws, and we're going to, these are the general laws, 9 or 10 or whatever the number was. And these are the laws that you're going to follow. And so if you don't follow those, here's the consequences. So you got to a point where eventually it went and it just kind of expanded. So are we at the point where, and you could argue it both ways, I'm sure there's pros and cons of both, would we be better off societally in a world where, like, realistically, we were just back in city states where Augusta worried about Augusta, where Atlanta worried about Atlanta? You still trade, you still, okay, Augusta's got pecans or whatever we have here in Augusta, I don't know. And we can go up to South Carolina and we trade. Would we be better off, or are we better off nation? And what's the ultimate there? Is it one world government where we're at with a technology where you do have, I mean, you look at movies and all and science fiction, most dystopian futures, there's not 180 or 190 or however many countries we have. There's like 5. There's the Americans, and then there's the Europeans, and there's the Africans, and there's the Asians, and there's the Australians. And even that is like, or the oceanic. So it's more like continental.
The experiment is, I think the experiment is based on classes, right? You're fighting with the doggy.
I'm just letting him out. He's got me trained. I have food out there, so I let him out. Yeah. This is adoption day yesterday, so I've been feeding him steak that was in the freezer.
Oh wow! Oh yeah.
Been using it as training though.
Oh yeah,
working really well. Yeah.
He's spoiled.
But I cooked some of it up. I cooked some of it up yesterday. It needs to go to the dog. It's freezer burned like a mother.
Oh wow! Yeah. He's gonna love it then. He'll be all right.
He has, yeah.
But no, man. I think the next step, like, we can't. If the states were left to decide on their own, we would quickly devolve to tribalism, right? Texans don't get along with Californians. Georgians see things differently from, I just the regional, you'd still have regional alliances, right? But there will still be those cultural differences. And that's just, I think that just harkens back to human nature, right? It's not.
Sure.
Hell, we can't get along as a country. And then the question will be, what is really holding us together as a country? What is it? That's it. That's it.
I mean, this is the Declaration of Independence, but it's the Constitution.
Yeah, it's the Constitution. That's it.
And of course, that's it. That's the point of it. The states were supposed to be. It was things. That's the craziest part of this. The founders, you find fault in the founders and how they wrote the Constitution, blah, 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 whatever. They wrote in the Bill of Rights, number 10, the last thing they put was anything not covered by this Constitution should be at the state level. If we remember that, and we would be so much better off, because I don't like the idea of a strong federal government. I like a loose federal government that is. I think we've said this before, and maybe you can answer it, because I think we've said it before. What two federal agencies does the Constitution guarantee?
Well, they knew the dangers. Yeah, they knew the dangers of a expanding federal government even way back then, which which speaks to the just brilliance of those dudes, man. Like, they were flawed as shit, but man, God, they were brilliant. Well, I don't. But to answer your question, though,
flawed.
Yeah. I don't know offhand. I can't remember. I can't recall.
Well, the first one you retired from.
Yeah. That thing.
Military.
Yeah.
The military guaranteed a national defense. You remember the second thing?
We
don't use it anymore. The post office. That's it. Those are the only two agencies the Constitution, when it was written, guaranteed for a defense of the nation and to make sure everybody got their mail. Think about what we have today. We have Department of Energy. We have Department of labor. We have a Department of of housing and development. We have everything you can think of. The federal government. I think there were so many problems. I think most of the problems that we have now are not from the original Constitution. I think the things we've added on, things like income tax. I think that taxation is theft. What did the federal government do to get X percentage of my paycheck? And I work for the federal government. Why am I getting taxed to begin with? But the better example is during COVID. Well, okay, let's go past COVID, right? 2022, 2023, you had all these people screaming about, record profits by Exxon and by BP and all this stuff. They're just manipulating. They're making all this money, and the federal government's going, hey, we get our cut. We get our cut. Where's our 25 billion in taxes? Right now, this is when they were making extra money. They were making profits in 22, 23. Well, if you remember, because of COVID in 20 and 21, those same companies were losing tens of billions of dollars. And you know what the federal government did? Hey, where's our billions? We need our 20 billion in taxes. And they're going, if a company is losing money, why are you getting money for taxes?
Yeah.
And not only that, but what did the federal government do to get, nice round number, 20% of all the money? Now you want to add a tax on, and you say, all right, because the gas, well, it's not even coming from the US for the most part. I mean, we are now, but if they're coming in and they're taking the money out and they're using it and all that stuff, why is the federal government taking some of it? Now, and you can say, well, it's because it's on the US land. That I'm fine with. Take a cut of what comes out of the ground. It's US. That's why you sell the leases the way you do. But again, that's why you sell the leases. If you and I get together and we go, hey, we think there's oil out back in my yard on this piece of federal land, and we go to the federal government and say, hey, we want to buy the rights to drill here. How much is that going to cost? And they say, okay, it's going to be $1 million. Okay, cool. Here's your $1 million. Well, I just paid for that. But now every drop of oil that comes out, now I have to pay more on top of that. Not only that, if it's a dry well, you know how much I get back? Nothing.
Yeah.
Too dang bad for you. So lots of stuff like that, where the stuff that's found in the amendments, the things that this clause was found in. I hate that. I hate it when they talk.
We went from being, again, I think we did it to ourselves. We went to a more corporate structure, right? Like,
yeah,
we shot ourselves in the foot, man. Like when we incorporated the Fed, I will never understand how we allowed ourselves to become prisoners of our own bank. It is insane to me.
Well, it's not our own bank, and if you want to go with the history of the Fed and the European powers that be and the conspiracy side of it, which
see, now you're starting to put the tinfoil hat on. Welcome to my world.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's stuff out there that.
Welcome to my world.
So, in the LDS, in the Book of Mormon.
Welcome to the dark side, my brother.
Yeah, and everybody knows I'm a chaplain. I'm an LDS chaplain. Believe in the Book of Mormon and the Bible. In the Book of Mormon, there's a group that comes along that uses secret combinations, which means, like when we talk about Illuminati and secret handshakes and backroom deals, and people think this is what the Masons do. The Masons aren't quite like that. Mm-hmm. But there are, and these guys are called the Gadianton robbers. Gadianton was the guy who started, very much like if Cain and Abel, when Cain killed Abel, Cain then went out and recruited some of his buddies and said, hey, you need to help me get rid of the body. But to do this, we're going to swear an oath to each other. And if anybody breaks this oath, we're going to kill you. We're going to slash your throats, right? Yeah. So the Gadianton robbers, and the Gadianton robbers became so powerful that at one point they essentially took over the government. Okay. And so it became a fight for the very heart of the people. Well, in today's culture, you'll see this in LDS Twitter and some of the conversations is that you look at the government and you look at some of these things and you go, that's where we're at. We're at the road. You know, we're in the cycle where the Gadianton robbers, one of our presidents, Benson, who used to work for the federal, he was like the head of the Department of Agriculture, cabinet position. He used to speak out against communism being the combinations, right? That it was an evil idea, which I agree with. And I think today there's a lot of people in the LDS faith who would love to hear our leadership come out and say, hey, we really need to be preparing ourselves individually because the Gadianton robbers are in charge at this point. And it's a different idea, but you and I talked about Eric Weinstein and how he was talking about Trump and how Trump must be stopped because Trump is the he's not in the web. He's not part of the global web. Europe hates Trump.
He's the guy that's not afraid to tell everything, and that's not good.
Right. So Trump is not the guy that's going to come in and be part of the normal system. Trump. So Weinstein, I think, argues it very, very well. He says the primaries are built so that you don't have a populist come up and make it in this country, right? Yep. Don't forget, and this is not to compare Trump to Hitler, but Hitler was not just thrown in there. Hitler was elected as the premier, you know, as the leader of Germany with a minority, with a very not a significant minority. I mean, it was a minority. It wasn't anywhere near the majority, right?
Yeah.
And so Trump coming in and getting elected, in terms of throwing the global spider webs on its ear, that's what Hitler did. Now, Hitler did it in a incredibly wicked and evil way. And there are people who will say Trump is doing the same thing, which is ridiculous, because if that was the case, I don't remember Hitler being in for 4 years, getting elected out, and then going away because he didn't get elected out. He seized control. If Trump had wanted to do all the things that he's being accused of, being a dictator, going after his political opponents, blah, 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 why didn't he do it in 2017 when he had the power? He had the Republicans. Checks and balances, baby. It's almost like the founders figured some stuff out, right? And if Trump right now, you've already said, Trump is now survived 2 attempts. You have a standing bet that he won't survive 6 months if he's elected. We have a milkshake bet on that.
We sure do.
Yeah. And I hope you're wrong. Really do. But you look at the people that have come to Trump's side. Now, everybody wants to talk about people who are on Harris's side. Oh, look at all the, Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. Remember, Dick Cheney was Darth Vader to the left, but suddenly he's a good guy and a good endorsement to get. Think about that manipulation by the media. Okay. So, but look at the people that have come to Trump's side. Robert Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard.
Robert Kennedy Jr. is probably not the best example. That dude is a weirdo.
But he is a weirdo in terms of he sees these conspiracies and he goes, wait a minute. This isn't okay. This is like, there's more to it than this. He's a weirdo, maybe on a different frequency than you, KJ. But you two are kindred spirits. He is Ben Shovel at like a 4 instead of Benz's 10. Benz, I hope you're watching this. I love you, brother. But I really don't think he is as unhinged as he's being made out to be. I think he's weird. I agree. He's kind of, there are things he's weird, like what was it? A bear. They put a bear in Central Park with a bicycle and thought it'd be funny.
He rode around with a bear in his trunk and then he dumped it in Central Park. And then he cut off
next to a bicycle.
He cut off the head of a whale and put it on the roof of his car and drove around with it. And then there was the worm that was eating his brain for a while. Like,
well, that one, that's Parasite.
Like RFK's a weird dude, man. Like, he's got stories, man.
Where did the Kennedys' money come from?
Wasn't it bootlegging?
Bootlegging. What's bootlegging? What are you moving when you're bootlegging?
Yeah,
alcohol.
Yeah, like
that family. Call me crazy. Probably has some alcoholics in it. Now, I'm not saying RFK is an alcoholic. What I'm saying is, you probably got to be pretty drunk to have a bear and keep it in the back of your car and then think, hey.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the guy's got some, like I said, you got to keep in mind, he was my pick for president for a while. Like, so I rock with dude. He's just, he's strange fruit. That's all. Did
you see Zach Levy come out and support Trump?
Really?
So Zach Levy's the actor who played Shazam, right?
Yeah.
And okay. So he came out and he said, I am a Robert Kennedy Jr. Yeah, I am an RFK Jr. dude. Like, this guy, I am all in. So when he jumped to Trump, I was like, wait a minute, Trump? How are you going to Trump? So I started looking at it. Yeah, I'm voting for Trump, and I'm here to introduce RFK, who is voting for Trump. I'm right with him, and I'm with you. So you've got this weird situation, and I've said this is weird, that Trump has several of these Democrat outcasts who got cast out of the Democratic cult because they were asking questions. They were asking too many. They were trying to look behind the curtain and then they were calling it out. Tulsi is probably the best example, right? Meanwhile, the Republicans that have been flocking to the Harris campaign almost all have one thing in common, which is they were in power. And since Trump came on the scene, they have lost their influence and their power.
Tulsi kept asking why. That was her fault. She kept asking why.
Sure. And that absolutely. But look at the people that have supported Harris. How many of these, we have 200 generals and admirals who support Harris. Do you know how many retired generals and admirals there are? More than 200, probably 5 times that. And why are those other ones not coming out and supporting Harris? Because they don't want to say anything about Trump. They're like, we're going to vote for Trump, but we're not saying anything about it. Because the military, I think, is probably around 70 to 75% Republican. It may be high.
Yeah. It just makes good stories. It makes good marketing material, right?
Well, what it makes is a way to misrepresent what's really going on. And ironically, so you and I sit here and we say the misrepresentation, and this is why we're doing this cast tonight. The misrepresentation is wrong, but it's constitutionally protected. The First Amendment, to paraphrase, says the United States government will pass no law that limits freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, of religion, some of those things, but freedom of speech. Now, there's a couple things about freedom of speech people need to really remember. The First Amendment is talking about the government only, okay? So the government cannot come in and shut you down and say, nope, you can't say that. A private company, if KG and I go out and we work for XYZ Corp and we post on Facebook that, we're both no longer Dodgers or Braves fan, we're going to go support the Yankees. Never. And XYZ Corp is run by a Red Sox guy. And he goes, you know what? I don't like what you said. You're fired. he has every right to do that. Private company. Okay. Maybe it's in the handbook that says we will not accept any cheering for the Yankees. And I support that policy. No cheering for the Yankees is a good policy to have. So it protects the government only. But the other thing is freedom of speech and the First Amendment protections. Freedom of speech does not equal speech without consequences. We've all probably seen the video of white dude saying N-word in the convenience store multiple times, N-word to the guy standing right next to him, a fairly large African-American man. And he's saying N-word this, N-word, yo. And then the dude says, okay, pops him with a twisted T, knocks him out. He goes stumbling, That is speech with consequences. Did that guy have the right to use the N-word? Absolutely. Did he face the consequences for using the N-word? Absolutely. Now, here's one of the things about KJ and I. Now, because I'm still active duty military, if I were to have told that story and actually used the N-word, and KJ and I have talked about this, and I've used the word because I was telling a very direct story, one of our early casts. If somebody took that to my commander and said, look at what your chaplain said, I was offended. I don't think he should be a chaplain anymore. I want to file an EO complaint against him. The Army would probably do what they've done to me over the last year. They would just rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
but I would be, I'd be done. If I was trying to stay in, I'd be done. And they would absolutely kick me out at this point. It wouldn't be a, hey, whatever. I'd still be able to retire, but that's the thing is when we're talking about, can we zoom on just the First Amendment?
Yeah, I'll bring it in. So
KJ sent me earlier today. He sent me or he just sent me a text that said, yeah, we haven't had any responses to our TikTok. Most people aren't watching this right now, and that's fine. If you find it and you're watching, great, share it. If not, but we do. KJ does a great job of getting these cut up and putting them on TikTok, and that's where we get them.
TikTok,
and
we get in the most trouble.
But yeah, but apparently somebody, I didn't know this, somebody went on and had an account and started saying racist stuff. I don't even know what it was, but was saying racist stuff. And because of that, TikTok,
it's pretty funny.
TikTok shut down our comments section. Now, shutting down, and we've been throttled as well, down throttled and shadow banned. Maybe for something they say, something else, whatever. But how are we supposed? Freedom of speech is limited by these platforms. If TikTok decides that they no longer want to allow two POGs to have any videos, that unfortunately is their right. They can kick us off. It's not like we have the right to post on their platform, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. But the government coming in and doing that is not okay. And I think when you start seeing that line being blurred by the government, specific example would be Mark Zuckerberg got in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, we were told at Facebook not to allow any stories that weren't towing the COVID party line. And hopefully you've seen the video of the comparison of Cuomo, younger Cuomo. Is Chris the younger one or the older one?
I think he's the younger one.
Okay. Younger Cuomo journalist who in
CNN Cuomo.
Say again?
CNN Cuomo.
In about 2021, Joe Rogan comes out and says, hey, I had COVID. I took ivermectin and, ibuprofen and this and that, and I was good to go. And he goes on with Don Lemon and just, he's taking this horse dewormer. He's taking this paste. He's going to get people killed. This is as bad as anything Trump has said. Joe Rogan should be banned. 2 years later, guess who got COVID? CNN. Mr. Cuomo. Guess what he took? Ivermectin. And guess what he said? Oh, yeah, I got over it real quickly with this ivermectin. It was, wow, who knew? Who knew this was going to work? Everybody else? Because, but the stories had been suppressed. And that's where the First Amendment and the federal government, this is where it makes it really difficult. Because the First Amendment says Congress shall pass no laws respecting establishment of religion or prohibiting the free speech, free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press. Okay. And we all know the right of people to peaceably assemble has been gone out the window a long time ago. Here, you have to do it over here. Where does it say that if you want to peaceably assemble, you can only do it in a designated area? I don't see that in there. Especially the petition of the government for redress of grievances. So you've got the government going in and telling Facebook, hey, you cannot allow this quote unquote misinformation or anything that goes against COVID. Has there been anybody held accountable for that? When Trump talks about Afghanistan and firing the generals that were involved in that, and people turn around and gasp and clutch their pearls and say, how dare Trump say that about our military leaders? Look, any military leader who was part of the Afghanistan withdrawal when the way it went should have resigned. And if they didn't resign, they should have been fired. Were they? Oh, of course not. Of course not. Because if you are a general and you have a star on your shoulder, on your lapel, you are absolutely political. You have to be at that point. You have to play the game. You cannot go. If you go against the commander-in-chief's policies and you say that you don't agree with the commander-in-chief's policies, I 99% guarantee you will be investigated and you will be found under UCMJ. They will find something and you will be asked to retire.
Let me ask you, is the president beholden to the Bill of Rights? Does he have to adhere to the Bill of Rights?
I believe the president falls under the law. Yes. Now, but so here's the thing though. It's a bit of a trick question because the Bill of Rights does not grant a single right. Okay. This is something people don't understand and they misinterpret this and they've been fed this BS that the Bill of Rights is granting you rights. What the Bill of Rights says is you have these rights that are guaranteed innately. They are yours. And the Bill of Rights is saying the government will specifically not take those rights away. So is the president of the United States beholden to the Bill of Rights?
Yep.
If he is trying to take away those individual rights, yes, absolutely. He or she absolutely needs to be held accountable to the Bill of Rights. And if he or she is trying, and this includes anybody in the federal government, if they are trying, this includes governors, this includes freaking all the way down to, I think, school boards, let's say, because they are part of the government. If you are trying to take away somebody's rights that are guaranteed constitutionally, not only should the federal government make up for it in whatever way, but the person who is trying to take away your rights, and that we see that all the time with police officers. What just happened with the Memphis police officers? They were found guilty on a couple of the minor charges, but they weren't found guilty of violating his constitutional rights. I'm not really sure how, because we both saw the video, but Yes, the president is beholden to the Bill of Rights. Long answer for that.
They should have been dead. Those cops should have died.
They should have. Seeing the video, I wasn't in the courtroom.
I am not.
I don't know what the jury saw.
Tax dollars. Not a fan of.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree it was a waste of tax dollars because fair. Like if you scroll down a little bit, you have the right to a fair trial.
No. I'm cool with the fair trial. They should have died. They should have been death penalty sitting their asses, life for life. It's over. They had no reason taking that boy's life. None.
Well, I agree. So
that was not a justified. That was not a justified death at all.
I agree with you. From everything we know, I agree with you. I did not follow the trial. You notice the trial didn't get. I remember it came out. Didn't we talk about it like just in passing a few weeks ago? Like, hey, whatever happened with the Memphis, right?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, the trial came out and they were acquitted on the most serious charges. But it wasn't covered.
Just another
Isn't
day.
that once again? Isn't that curious?
Just another day.
What's the difference of why this one wasn't covered? We both know. It's the amount of melatonin. It's the amount of melatonin they had in their skin, right?
No, because just like the girl that killed the boy in Dallas in his apartment, she went into his apartment, killed him, and she's getting released early. She got 5 years and getting released early.
By the way, I know it's not melatonin. I know it's not melatonin you have in your skin.
Oh, you tell
go right by.
Yeah. No, man.
Well,
so
okay.
But
so
back,
the girl that
back,
went in
yeah,
that.
so we don't. Yeah, so
let me ask you that: the girl that went into the wrong apartment.
When the officer went into I think his name was Bothan John or whatever.
So what?
He goes into this guy's
you tell me the difference, but you tell me the difference between those two, though.
Between which two cases?
Between Memphis and Dallas.
For me,
sure. What do you think the difference was?
Both in both cases, the officers should be dead. I see no difference between her, the officers in Memphis, and the guy in Florida that shot the airman. I think they all should die. All those cops.
Okay, so the Florida airman, I'll agree with because that was flat out murder. I mean, well, okay, I will caveat the Florida one with one thing. The officer saw a handgun in the airman's hands. That said, I don't think that should have mattered. I'm with you. That shouldn't have mattered. Lots of dominoes in him.
Here we are talking about the constitutional amendments, and Amendment 2 is sitting right there in our face, and you're gonna say the officer saw a handgun?
Oh,
it's not illegal.
No. I'm not saying
no. Yeah, I was going to say here we are. Right. Yeah, here we are in the.
I'm not saying he was right.
In the United States of America, where you can have a person walk down the street with a daggum AR-15 on their back, 2 Glocks on their damn hip, and a grenade launcher in their hand, in camo, and the officer will high five him and say, "Hey, Second Amendment, great job." A guy comes to the door with a pistol, not even in a drawn position, to his side because he had a knock at the door that he wasn't expecting, and he lost his life. A service member. That cop.
I get it. I get it. I have told you this before. I will always give the benefit of the doubt to the officer unless he doesn't deserve it. Now, the 2 cops and the old woman with the pot of water, that dude should be dead
too. Yep. I have no remorse.
I'm not sure. I think that happened a little too fast. The partner probably should be held accountable. The George Floyd thing. I was on Chavin's side the entire time until the closing arguments of the prosecutor, who said, "Look, doesn't matter if he had drugs in his system. Doesn't matter if he didn't want to get in the car. Doesn't matter if they laid him down. If that officer had not put his knee across George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes, George Floyd would be alive." And I went, "Yeah, okay. Manslaughter." Now, did I think it was murder? No. But do I think it was manslaughter? Sure. the woman going into the wrong apartment, the reason I kind of have a caveat on that, she was drunk as shit. So there's that.
How was she drunk? She was getting off work.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong then. My understanding was she was drunk.
Work. She wasn't drunk. She was coming off work. She got off work.
Then how do you go in the wrong apartment?
Exactly.
Oh, so you think if it was targeted, then yeah, I'm with you then.
No, she was coming
I could be
off
completely
work.
wrong.
They said she was asleep because she had worked overtime. That was the excuse.
Sleepy?
Yeah, that was her excuse.
Well, but then again,
tired.
we both know in the military that lack of sleep. Now, again, not justification, but I still don't think sleepy or walking in somebody else's. Yeah, that's not. I'd have to see the details on it, but she did go to jail, right? She was found guilty.
She got 5 years. It's been less than 3, and she's getting released in 2 weeks.
Well, there's so much stuff going on with the federal courts and the this and that and the other. That
man lost his life.
Yeah,
prime of his life.
Look,
for
KJ,
doing nothing, for doing nothing, and sitting in his apartment.
So my whole thing is, I've told you, dude. If I'm in charge, if I was king, the first one of the early things I would do is say, okay, you're arrested, you're charged, you have to be tried within 1 year. If you're on capital stuff like rape and murders, things like that, you have to be tried within a year. If you get convicted, it automatically gets appealed. Second time, it goes up within a year. The third time, again, automatic appeal. If you're convicted the third time and the third time's in front of the Supreme Court, because then you better be damn sure about your case. If you're convicted the third time, it's not back to your jail cell. It's out back to firing squad, noose, electric chair, your choice. Here, welcome, Mr. Bond. Here's your choices. Yeah, and I'm with you when you're talking about capital stuff. As far as the way, I'm torn on stuff like this though, because you've got people in LA County who aren't charged basically because if they're charged, they would have to go to jail, and the county jails are so overcrowded that they wouldn't have a place to sleep.
Yeah.
So instead of charging them, they just release them back into the wild. And I mean, what kind of country are we? Yeah, and then you've got System of a Down that talks in songs about we have the highest incarceration rate in the world, which by the way isn't necessarily true. It depends on how you look at it, but because there's a million Uyghurs in jail basically in China right now, basically because of their faith.
Numbers are what they are, right? They'll tell you I saw an interesting one where your boy Shapiro was doing his thing, and he loves to spout that 13%. That's his favorite thing. It's 13%.
I don't really follow Ben Shapiro. I know all the dark internet guys. 13%
of the population, but they make up half the prison population, and is that now? That's his.
And we've talked about this.
Yeah, that's his go-to line, right? And why is that, and why can't they get it right? But he never really addresses like the core issue. That's his thing. That's like Shapiro could be so great, but he always just he always tells just enough to get his point across, but the devil's in the details, right?
Well, yes, and I mean, of course, there's a point where, as a incredibly popular host, he knows who his audience is.
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh lost me when he was pushing back against a 72-hour background check for handguns, and I was like, "Is that?" I mean, I'm all for the Second Amendment. I love guns. I think anybody who wants a gun. I think when you turn 18, you should automatically get a federal carry conceal permit. Like not a permit, you just have one. Like you can carry at 18. But if the federal government's going to say, well, we want to keep it out of the hands of people who are mentally ill or who they need a cool down period, 72 hours. Yeah, I really don't have a problem with that. I think that's fairly safe for the people. And I know, not even just 72 hours, but the actual background check. I think there should be some form of background check. And I think we, as a country, we do a bad job of putting, people talk about these red flag laws where you can go in and take guns away. Well, I think that should be a very, very high bar to go in and take somebody's guns away.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about police officers and you're talking about what happened in Memphis, you and I watched that. And I mean, the death shot.
That's just that's abuse of power, though. You know what I mean? That's ultimately just playing judge, jury, and executioner. You're out because
for a traffic stop.
Yeah. Well, did you know the story behind that, right?
Well, I didn't know. Was it verified that he had dated the girlfriend? Because I saw some people say, yeah. Well, I've seen other stuff that said that wasn't true.
That it came out in the court documents. That's all that was.
Did it? Okay. So it turned out to be true after.
Yeah.
So isn't that amazing, though? Isn't that amazing? One of the first kind of stuff that came out, they were saying, look, this happened because he was dating the guy's ex-girlfriend. He got targeted by these cops. And then you had people go, oh, no, that's not what happened. That's bullshit.
It's insane, man.
Yeah. So I firmly remember like him running away, like getting away. And then that last shot where he was leaned up against the police car in his handcuffs. And that dude came up and threw that right cross that, if I remember right, literally an internal decapitation. That's what killed him. I still remember that. And watching that, I just thought, because I'm a bit of a morbid guy at heart. And I like to know what is actually out there. I don't want soldiers. I think soldiers should have to watch the worst of humanity, because unfortunately that's, as a soldier, that's what you're going to be facing. You have to realize there is evil in this world, and there is blood and there is gore. And if you freeze up because you've never seen blood before, then that's a failure by our government and by our drill sergeants in the system. And it's a failure, because I'll but guarantee right now, a kid coming out of basic and AIT, if you said, have you ever seen a dead body, even, on PowerPoint, they'd say no.
Yeah.
Unless it's in their own private life that they've seen it, they'll say no. They need to be prepared for this stuff, and they're not.
Shout out to Rotten.com for ruining my young adult.
What was it called? Rotten.com.
Remember they had the autopsy photos back in the day?
Yeah. What was the other? There was another one that was it InfoWars? Was it InfoWars that did all the decapitation of Pearl and all that?
Before
Pearl and all that stuff.
Yeah, before old boy got
Yeah.
help.
So stuff like that. Files that would get, back in the day, these kids don't know. We used to share files. Like, and what's funny is how many people would share files and not tell you what it is.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know where I got it. Somebody shared this file with me and I didn't know what it was. And it's this Latino guy who he's in the interview room at the police station, right? And the cop's in there. He's talking to him. This is clearly a cartel guy. He says, look, this is your only way out. I'm going to go to get the paper. And the guy's like, yeah, okay, fine. He goes out. This dude reaches down into his sweatpants and pulls out a 45, might have been a 9mm, but a 45.
Onions and stuff, right then. I saw that video. Yeah.
Boom, right. And you see the cop coming in. Oh, like, didn't anybody search it? Like, and as a former MP, I watched it. Holy crap. And then what I did, I went back and I'm like looking at his clothes going, can you see where it is? And all the other stuff I watched again, because again, I've got a morbid personality in a lot of ways. But like, but you ask soldier, I all but guarantee these soldiers, like I would show that clip to being former MP. I would show that clip in AIT to MPs if I could. And I said, this is the type of thing that happens if you don't do a good search. This is, and it's not just that this guy dies. It's that you're going to be held accountable. You think those detectives lost their jobs or at least were reprimanded? Of course they were.
Oh, yeah.
But what information did this guy die with? What did that do? So that's very, very different, though, from the Memphis officers who murdered that kid because one of them was dating, because he was dating somebody's ex.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. You want to go final thoughts first?
No, that's it. You got it. I enjoyed the ride today. I enjoyed being in the passenger seat today, chilling.
Final thoughts. I'm going to steal this from Gregg Easterbrook, who was on our podcast a few months ago.
That'll give me a chance to
he wrote
my final thought. Why you go?
So Gregg made this point in he's on Substack. Go read Gregg Easterbrook, 2 G's, Gregg Easterbrook. Subscribe. I do. He's great. I think he made this one free behind the paywall. When you have one major political party saying things like misinformation should be banned, the other political party should not be allowed to share misinformation, that hate speech should be banned, that's a problem. Freedom of speech protects us, especially against the things we don't want to hear. It's not the government's place to come in and say what is information, what is misinformation, because to them, whatever they want to be the truth, they can make it because they are the people in power. And if you truly respect the First Amendment, I don't see how you can vote for the blue team. Now, that is not an endorsement of the red team, but it is saying that the blue team will, if they are in charge, will absolutely pass laws to restrict freedom of speech in the name of quote unquote misinformation and hate speech. And it is just, it is a slippery slope, and it's a slope that they want to go down. They want to control every part of speech. They're using 1984 as a playbook, not as a warning.
That is a great final thought. Using it as a playbook. That is, yeah. I mean, but that was the whole point of 1984. They said it was going to come to pass either way. What I got? I got 2 minutes. At the behest of a friend of mine, it was highly recommended that I go back and reread How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I know you read it before. I don't know how long it's been since you read it, but that is a phenomenal, phenomenal read. Absolutely love it. And I am falling back in love with it again. So just getting started back into it, first 3 chapters, a quote came across the radio as I was driving today, and I wanted to share it as my final thought. It was originally quoted by Etienne de Grellet, who was a Quaker missionary, and I got his dates pulled up, 1773 to 1855. And the quote says, "I shall pass this way but once. Any good that I can do or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." And it's been a while since I read this book. I want to say junior, senior year of high school. But man, this book was so profound, man. And if everyone would just put this book or these principles in their must-read list, I think society would be a lot better off. Get back to the principles of just, showing appreciation to one another, man. It, doesn't have to be about flattery. You don't have to be disingenuous about it. or as we used to say in the military, you don't have to blow smoke up their fourth point of contact, but just show some genuine appreciation. Everybody's out doing the best they can. Everybody's out. Everybody has it rough, man. But just try to make an effort to show some appreciation. You know, just drop little nuggets of appreciation here or there, man. And you'd be surprised how far it goes. Anyway, same time next week. We out of here. Y'all have a great one.